The British intelligence has warned that Russian spies could soon launch a new wave of drone attacks targeting military headquarters across the UK in a bid to sow chaos, the Daily Mail has said. The announcement comes amid growing reports of similar incidents around the world. According to the publication, a mysterious group of drones attacked 3 air bases used by the US Air Force in November, prompting a swift response from the British military and police. The UAVs were spotted over 3 bases, RAF Lakenheath and RAF Mildenhall in Suffolk, as well as RAF Feltwell in Norfolk. Defense sources described the drone overflights as a coordinated operation. Similar drone invasions have also been reported in New Jersey, USA, where unidentified aircraft have been seen circling over the US Army's Picatinny arsenal, the home of the CCDC, which manufactures and supplies artillery ammunition to Ukraine. Since mid-November, numerous drones have been spotted over the state, sometimes in groups. The UAVs often hovered in one place for several hours. Their appearance was later recorded in New York, Texas, and Oklahoma. U.S. Army General Darrell Williams described a situation that mirrors what has unfolded at American/NATO bases across Europe that are known to supply arms to Ukraine. And retired police lieutenant and intelligence analyst Tim McMillan told DailyMail.com that the descriptions of the UFOs in Jerseys sound exactly like Russian Orlan-10 drones, secretive craft that fly in packs of 3 to 5. Who is behind the mysterious appearance of the drones has not been officially established. However, powerful intelligence analysts from the US and UK point directly to Russian President Vladimir Putin. Well, who else? Everything is clear here, even without powerful analysts. A former British spy has claimed today that Russian intelligence services may be preparing a new wave of incursions into British airspace. Former British military intelligence colonel Philip Ingram said the incidents bore all the hallmarks of an operation by Russia's secret GRU intelligence agency. Experts have noted that the New Jersey sightings circled around Picatinny Arsenal, home of the U.S. Army's CCDC Armaments Center, which is responsible for manufacturing and supplying Ukraine with artillery ammunition. These experts suggest that Russia could be carrying out an intelligence gathering mission known as ferreting, meaning to intentionally trigger and test their foreign rivals' airspace defense procedures and response time. Or Russia could simply be spying on allies of Ukraine who are aiding the fight against Russia's occupation of its southeastern regions, including Donetsk and Mariupol. There is a real panic among Russian military propagandists due to the growing problems associated with the loss of control over Syria. Russian ZWAR correspondent Anastasia Kashevarova in her report states that there will be catastrophic consequences for the Russian military and the country's strategic interests. According to Kashevarova, Russian military bases in Syria are trapped. The Khmeimim base is surrounded by rebels whom Bashar al-Assad is in Moscow, and our military is stuck and blocked in Syria, Libya, Africa. Our bases are completely blocked. No one is allowed in or out. All transport routes are cut off. She is indignant. Tartus, the most important base for the Russian Navy, has been effectively abandoned, and ships with Russian troops are in the coastal zone. At the same time, transport routes for supplying the bases have been completely cut off, which puts the military in an extremely difficult position. Kashevarova expresses concern that the fate of the Russian military presence in Syria is being discussed in negotiations between Russia, Turkey, Iran, and other countries. However, the prospects do not inspire optimism. If we leave Syria, the meaning of the Defense Ministry's Africa Corps is lost, as well as the strategic transport hub that provides access to Africa, the journalist emphasizes. Moreover, the loss of Syria will give Turkey the opportunity to strengthen its position in the European energy market, including the construction of a pipeline to Europe from Qatar, which will seriously undermine Russia's economic interests. Kashevarova points out that Russian military personnel at bases in Syria have been blocked, and their stay is limited to 75 days, according to the preliminary agreements. If the situation does not change, the contingent may be withdrawn by sea. Behind the scenes, fears are growing that Russia could become a bargaining chip in big geopolitical games. Syria is turning into an instrument of pressure on Russia to persuade it to capitulate on terms acceptable to Ukraine and the United States. Kashevarova believes Russia's withdrawal from Syria would be not only a military but also a geopolitical disaster. The loss of the Khmeimim base would destroy the ability to project power into the Middle East and Africa. It would also weaken Russia's negotiating position with the West, allowing NATO countries to increase pressure even further. Kashevarova's words reflect a growing sense of hopelessness among Russian propagandists. The loss of Syria could become a symbol of the global weakening of Russia's influence in the world and a serious blow to its geopolitical ambitions. Ousted Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad has decided to flee Syria under pressure from the Kremlin, which has convinced him that defeat is inevitable. Fearing that Assad will suffer the same fate as Libyan tyrant Muammar Gaddafi, who was captured and killed by militias, Moscow has offered the Syrian ruler safe passage out of the country, according to a Bloomberg article. The agency's sources said that the operation to evacuate Assad from Syria was carried out by Russian intelligence officers. The dictator was taken out of the country via the Khmeimim airbase. The plane carrying Assad flew with its transponders turned off to prevent surveillance. Hours after Assad's escape, rebels entered the Syrian capital Damascus and declared the regime overthrown. The dictator's ouster drew a line under the Assad dynasty, which lasted more than half a century and began with Hafez al-Assad, Bashar al-Assad's father, who has ruled Syria since 1971. The agency also learned of Russian dictator Vladimir Putin's dissatisfaction with the activities of his intelligence services, which failed to notice the growing threat to the regime in Damascus. In the first days of the rebel offensive, Russian aircraft struck them, but then the Kremlin realized that it would not be possible to save the Assad regime due to the virtual inaction of the Syrian army on the ground. Now, Russia is trying to maintain its bases in Tartus and Khmeimim by contacting Syrian opposition groups that have established control over Damascus. The agency also mentions talks between Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and the Turkish and Iranian foreign ministers in Doha. The day before, the Turkish resource Clash Report wrote that the Syrian rebels allegedly do not mind if the Russian Federation maintains its presence at the bases in Tartus and Khmeimim. In turn, Russian propagandists reported that the Russian bases are completely blocked by the opposition, but negotiations on their fate are still ongoing. Meanwhile, satellite images showed that Russian ships were at anchor in the Mediterranean Sea, 8 kilometers away from the port of Tartus. Russia is scrambling to save face after its humiliating loss of its client, dictator Bashar al-Assad, and the Kremlin has conceded preserving its crucial Syrian military bases will take time and delicate negotiations with groups it was calling terrorists just days ago. Russian military bloggers bitterly attacked Assad for the loss of Syria, but Russian analysts argued that it was Putin's preoccupation with the war in Ukraine that resulted in the loss of focus on his Syria project. Russia's recent failure to recognize the fragility of Assad's military was also a new low in a series of disastrous intelligence failures that have discredited Russian intelligence agencies.